Welcome back to the Moonflower Show! We just did a cute little 2-minute intro all by ourselves because we did not press record.
Yes, and now that intro has been lost forever to time.
Yes, I'm Winter.
I'm Colin.
And we are here with a very special episode of the Moonflower Show, here to talk to you about The Gamer.
Yeah, we were also
2021.
We were also just talking about how we are saying that it's a very special episode every time we make an episode now.
Yeah,
or at least I feel like we are. We
spent the first 2 minutes debating whether or not it was a very special episode, so maybe it's for the best that got cut.
Hey, I think half the reason people like this show is because we go on tangents about irrelevant shit.
Yeah, it's gotta be. Otherwise, I don't know why you're here.
You gotta be here for the tangents.
Yeah,
You came for the topic of discussion. You stayed for the tangents.
Oh, true.
We're talking about the gamer. The gamer as an archetype, as an identity.
Yes.
And this is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now, and I didn't really have a specific idea of like what I wanted to talk about relating to video games. But I know that I've wanted to talk about it for a while because video games and the relationship that I've shared with video games has like shaped a large part of who I am as a person, which must sound weird to anyone who does not engage with video games, because it's like, and we're going to talk more about this, I feel like the perception of video games from a lot of non-gamers is that it's like, it's a pastime, and it's like, it's something to do to like spend time, but it's not something that you really like take in and like engage with on a deep level. And there are reasons for this, which we will get into.
Yes. Do you want to talk a little bit more about why and how you feel like games have become such a huge part of your identity?
Yeah, so I grew up. I've been playing video games since I was in diapers.
Yeah.
I have an uncle, my Uncle Mike, I love you, who is 8 years older than me. He's my mom's youngest brother. She's the oldest sibling. He's the youngest. And I'm the oldest of my mom's children. So my Uncle Mike's 8 years older than me. And I was born in 1999. He was born in 8 years older. That must be 92 or 91, right? So I got a lot of like hand-me-down shit from him. Including like toys, like VHS tapes, and like old school consoles, or like not super old school, but like Nintendo 64 and like Game Boy Advance era stuff, and like a lot of it, you know?
Yeah.
And I had a lot of access to that stuff growing up, and it was like, if I didn't have any other, like, obligations as a 4-year-old, it was pretty much my go-to. I mean, I liked playing with, like, the toys and stuff, too. Oh, I loved Legos. Legos was my jam. But I spent a lot of time playing video games. And just, that never stopped over the years. I only grew to appreciate it more. I definitely, I think, developed a better taste in video games, because when you're a kid, you play what you have.
Yeah, it's the same thing with movies. Like, any colors and shapes that are moving on a screen will entertain a child.
Yeah.
But for me, I need 2.5 hour long YouTube videos to entertain me.
Yeah, I'm certain.
I have refined taste.
I'm certainly not going back and playing the Game Boy Advance game of the movie Robots anymore, which, you know, wasn't super bad, but maybe as a 22-year-old man, I don't have time for that right now.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. No offense to any people out there who may be playing.
Robots, the movie for the Game Boy Advance. It's my favorite game.
It might be. Art is subjective. Anyway, please continue.
Hey, actually, there are some real good games out there that are based off of movies. Oh, and like this is a tangent, but one thing that I'm really liking that's happening recently is the adaptation of video games into other art forms, because usually it's the other way around. Like people will make a video game based on like a movie or a book or something. But recently we're seeing a rise in like movies and like TV series based off of like video games. Like the one that comes to mind, which is so good, is the Netflix Castlevania series. Oh my god, it's really good.
Cool. I've never played it or seen it.
It was just like this classic, like really like Castlevania started out as like this video game series for like the the Nintendo Entertainment System, like super old. Just like little pixel graphics. Like vampire slaying games, and now it's got like a whole ass anime adaptation. It's amazing. Anyway, what were we talking about?
We were talking about how gaming became such a huge part of your identity.
Right. I still don't remember what the last thing I said was before we started talking about Castlevania.
Well, you were talking about video games that get made into movies. You were talking about Robots, the video game.
That's true. I don't think I was going anywhere with that. Fuck!
Well, before that, we were talking about your identity as a gamer. And
there was something in between that.
I know, I'm getting
Help us, Moonflowers. What happened 30 seconds ago?
You were talking about your uncle and how he's 8 years older than you.
Oh yeah, we were talking about how my taste refined over the years.
Right.
And you play what you have access to as a kid. But I want to talk about the reason that I like came up with this specific idea for this episode, like the gamer as like an identity, and like how that fits into just being alive and being a person today.
Yeah.
So I just started a new job, and I'm having a great time with it. I'm getting to meet a lot of cool new people. And during the orientation, like training period, I'm meeting a lot of people like around my age, and we're introducing ourselves, we're talking to each other, and I hit that point in these introductions that I always do. It's like, oh, you get this weird, like, I don't know, weird shame of saying that, look, like, okay, one of my favorite things in life, one of my like favorite pastimes is playing video games, because for some reason it feels like a risk to say that, because you either talk to somebody else who like understands that, or if you're talking to like a non-gamer, I suppose, it can come off as just like weird,
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of unnecessary and wrong, not ethically, although probably also ethically, but like literally just like incorrect judgment towards gamers, about the type of people that they are, about how they spend their time, about their work ethic and their motivation, which, by the way, why are we still judging people on their work ethic in 2021? But besides that, I think that a lot of people have this misconception that, like, the gamer, the archetype, is somebody who sits in bed all day or, like, sits at the computer all day and plays video games and like doesn't shower, has poor hygiene and doesn't have a job and like is kind of a deadbeat, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think that perception is like more common among older folks than younger folks, but I think that some young folks still do have that perception.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that perception is passed down between some generations. And hey, I'm not gonna pretend like there aren't days I play video games for 8 hours straight.
Right.
And I'm not gonna pretend like there aren't gamers who do nothing but play video games and have poor hygiene. They're out there for sure.
If you're listening to this, you're still welcome here. Just please take a shower.
But it's like those people that like stereotypical gamer, the deadbeat gamer, quote unquote, has become the face of gamers as an identity.
Yeah, somehow we have chosen him.
And I want to I want to go through the reasons why that might be.
Yes, we wanted to talk a little bit about like the history of the gamer archetype and how it's kind of evolved through the last couple decades.
Yes. And even before that, I want to mention why this like dichotomy of like gamer versus non-gamer even occurs, because this goes back to the beginning of video games. Why is it such an unrelatable thing, you know, to like video games?
Right.
And a huge part of it, I think, is the fact that it's unique as a pastime because you're not really exposed to it as a kid unless you seek it out.
Yeah.
You're not like for example, like pastimes like reading or playing sports or like even like hiking. These are things that you get exposed to as a kid, whether you like it or not, through school, or perhaps like even like stuff like hiking and camping. Like maybe you're in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or something.
Yeah.
And
or you know of a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout who does that.
And like maybe if you like to build things, that's probably like, you know, like maybe your parents are like, you know, in a profession like that, or like you have a friend, or like you really like your tech ed class in school. Yeah,
something else that comes to mind is like media, not just news, but like shows. Like I just thought of like Bob the Builder, you know?
Yeah.
Like where there's not like a show for children about a gamer, you know?
Yeah, and I mean,
or about gaming.
There certainly wasn't like 10, 20 years ago. Maybe there is now.
Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't know.
Some new age children's show about like
4-year-olds?
Gamer positivity.
Let us know in the comments, toddlers.
If you're 4 years old, you probably shouldn't be watching this show.
Yeah, definitely not. If you're 4 years old, go tell your mom and dad to turn this podcast on. Or your parent.
But like you don't get exposed to this because it's not seen as something productive or like even tangential to being productive. It was such a separate thing from anything else ever since the conception of video games. Mm-hmm. And to even if you did seek it out, it's a process to like acquire the skill of playing video games, because it is a skill. It's like learning how to ride a bike, you know?
I will go on the record and I will say that it is a skill because I don't know how to do it. Can I do a tangent?
For sure.
So I've recently become interested in Smash. Bold, I know. Because Colin is a competitive Smash player and I always see him play, and I sat down one night recently with him and I was like, can I play this with you? Because I know it's something that you enjoy and I want to keep kind of giving it a shot, you know? And I didn't tell you this, but actually the last time we sat down to play it, it clicked. I was like interested. I like wanted to get better. Mm-hmm. But the problem was I don't have the motor skills. I don't have the like it's not hand-eye coordination. It's like hand-eye screen coordination.
Yes.
Which I have to an extent because I've been gaming for a couple of years now, but I have to relearn it and reorient myself every time I change what game I'm playing and every time I change what console I'm using. Yeah. Like, if I go from the Switch to the PS4, it's like I'm in a different world. But yeah, I would say, like, absolutely, if there are folks out there who don't think that gaming is a skill, I would say that at the very least, like, literally being able to use a controller, just like typing is a skill.
Yes. Being
able to use a controller is absolutely a skill. And I know this because I'm bad at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like that is a barrier for entry.
Yeah.
Which causes it not to be so accessible. Mm-hmm. There's not a huge market for like video games designed for like adults who've never played video games before. Or maybe like stuff like mobile games is like that. But mobile games as a whole, its own thing.
Yeah. I don't like mobile games.
Mobile games are really most of the time just a cash grab.
Yeah.
But I digress.
I also... Whatever.
Wait, were you going to say something?
If you're interested in hearing why I don't think that we should be spending more time on our phones, head on over to our 17 episodes about it. Just kidding.
I mean, the previous two episodes.
The self, social media, and selling your attention. I actually really at some point want to talk about why I think that video games are way better than, like, scrolling and, like, being on your phone, and why I think that, like, console games are way better than...
Oh, yeah.
Just, like, psychologically, I think they're way better for you than mobile games.
I mean, I will talk about that in this episode, too.
Yeah.
But... So playing video games is a skill.
Right.
And it was a skill that you had to seek out of your own accord. You're not exposed to it unless you seek it out. And it's not seen as something productive or worth your time by most of your like parents or like older people. So in like the rise of video games in like the 80s, the identity of the gamer started to form. I'm taking this so seriously, and it's probably sounds so funny.
It sounds funny said out loud, but I think it's a serious concept. This is a real thing.
Yes, I know that it sounds funny.
It's human history we're talking about here.
I acknowledge it, but this is what I want to talk about because I have a lot of strong feelings about it.
Yes, share your strong feelings.
Even if it is a little funny. So the identity of the gamer started to form because all these kids are like going to the arcade, and this identity of like this like rebel, like nihilist person. Yeah. Formed a person that chose to spend their time doing something that was perceived to help them accomplish nothing. It was just seen as pushing buttons, looking at a screen, flashing lights, and spend their time, committing their time getting better at that than doing anything else productive. So that was like the first like piece of the gamer identity that formed. It was a whole group of people that were just alienated.
Yeah. And keeping in mind also that the 80s was a different time from today, just like in terms of like cultural values and stuff. Yeah. I mean, I think that we still have this kind of like moral imperative to work hard and like be a good citizen and pursue the American dream. Yeah. And I think it was even stronger so 40 years ago, you know? And I say that, I guess, just based on intuition. and what I've seen in the media. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. So I imagine like it was seen as like an especially like deviant behavior, you know, to reject that, because that's what it was. Mm-hmm. It was like, I want to have fun. And you know how they felt about sex, drugs, and rock and roll and fun in the 80s. They didn't like it. Well, I think they liked it less than they do now.
The people who liked it, and the people who didn't like it really didn't like it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a whole, like, just movement of, like, why do I have to spend my time doing something that isn't fun?
Right.
And that feeling was so strong.
Yeah.
And gaming really embodied that, like the whole vibe of just like going to the arcade and like putting physical money into the machines just to spend time playing video games.
Yeah.
That was a really foreign concept to people.
Yes, but there in the arcade, staring at the flashing lights, shoving money into the machine, we saw the gamer form.
Born
he was there in the arcade,
born of the soda-stained carpet, born of the hideous body odor,
of his smoke-smelling leather jacket, of his rebel vibe. He appeared. So yeah, that's where we kind of perceive that the gamer archetype began. Kind of moving along, just like chronologically, in the 90s, what would you say that it meant if you said you were a gamer in the 90s?
So, late 80s into the 90s rolls around, and video games started to branch out into, like, before really the only place you're playing video games is at the arcade. Because there wasn't the technology yet to, like, produce like video game consoles on like a large consumer scale yet.
Right.
But late 80s, 90s roll around, and then you see the introduction of like computer games and like home consoles. And around this time was when games started to be marketed more as like toys for like families and children. And then you had like games that were typically enjoyed by like kids, and these were usually like simpler games like you know, Atari, like Pong and stuff.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, that was an arcade game, but like, you know, you're not gonna buy Pong for the Atari for like a 19-year-old, you know.
Speak for yourself.
And then if you were a little older, the kind of games you were probably enjoying were like computer games, like RPGs,
yeah,
maybe
like
text-based adventures.
Yeah.
And this was perceived to be made by and for people who would rather sit inside and do jack shit than go out and, you know, party and like be cool, you know, or what it was considered to be cool.
Yeah.
So that was the second piece that was like, you know, gamers are losers. That was when that kind of thing kind of rolled around.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, we probably should have done a content warning in the beginning of the episode. But quick content warning for gun violence.
Yeah.
And let's say that we'll talk about that for like a minute. So if you skip ahead a minute, you'll definitely be past the explicit mention of a certain event.
Right, yeah.
So,
I mean, I think it's fine that we're mentioning it now.
Yeah, so if you're not cool with talking about that, just go ahead and skip ahead a little bit.
We can probably put it in the description, too.
Yeah, we'll figure out what time you can skip ahead to, and you can just restart it there. So we'll see you on the other side. Mm-hmm. Now is the time to do that.
Yeah.
At the end of the 90s, we saw the Columbine shooting.
Yes.
And that happened in 1999. And moving on from that point, I think we saw a lot of people who thought that, like, video games caused gun violence or just violent behavior in general.
Yeah, and it's like the the media was already starting to portray the gamer as like alienated and like apart from normal people, and then an event happens that allows them that like they're able to latch on to,
yes,
and basically make gamers a scapegoat for gun violence.
Yes, and the thing is, the 2 shooters in the Columbine shootings were gamers. Like, they were gamers, like the Archetype. And that was a huge part of their identity. So, like, I don't think that it was entirely unfounded, per se, for people to question that, you know? To say, like, hey, these people are doing this thing, like, maybe we should look into that. Like, these games can be really violent. By the way, the correlation between, or like any potential correlation between like video games causing violence has been debunked, so don't get your knickers in a twist about it. Correlation denied.
Does not imply causation. Statistics, baby.
Well, there's not even a correlation.
Well, I mean, some people think that one event correlating to one person is a correlation.
Well, okay.
Statistically speaking, that's not true.
So we got 2 issues here. First of all, one instance of something happening at the same time as something else is not a correlation.
Yeah.
Me being wide awake at 3 a.m. does not mean there is a correlation between being awake and 3 a.m.
I'm awake is eternally 3 a.m. Oh no.
And second of all, any causation was certainly debunked, and I don't even think that there was a correlation. So we're going to actually link an article that talks about that in the description if you want to read more about it.
Yeah.
But point being, a lot of people thought in the 2000s that was an issue. They thought that video games were causing violent behavior, despite science that maybe, I don't know if it was at the time, but definitely later came out and said, hey, that's not true. So if you said you were a gamer in the 2000s, like, people thought that you were like the Columbine shooter.
Yes, and what's really funny about this argument is that while, like, shooting games, a game where you play as a person with a gun who shoots other people, while that's a very popular genre of video game, there's, like, an entire world of video game genres, right?
Right.
And then people automatically think of, like, shooting games because it's like the most popular genre. But, like, you say you're a gamer and somebody thinks you're the Columbine shooter and you're, like, sitting at home playing, like,
Animal Crossing,
Mario Brothers, and it's like, I just want to save the princess, dude.
Like, bro, I'm decorating my island.
I'm playing Tetris over here. I'm stacking blocks.
I am starting my farm on Stardew Valley and making friends in this game.
Yeah.
What about that screams antisocial behavior to you?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's amazing to me that people thought that. Although, to be honest, I think if I was in that time, like if I was older than 4 at that time, I think I might have been persuaded, you know?
I mean,
it's a tempting thought.
The media scares are very effective.
Yes,
there was a lot of them around that time.
And, I think I started high school in 2011, and I think in one of my, like, maybe my English class or something like that, we had to write about, like, do you think that video games, like violent video games, have like a correlation with violence? So it was like still a topic of discussion. Yeah. And we discussed that in school.
Yeah. I mean, it really is still to this day, even though it has been completely debunked, and like most people will be like, absolutely not. But
yes,
for some reason that discussion is still stuck around.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show you how effective these, like, scandals are.
Yep.
But then going a couple, like, maybe a decade later, we get to the point where the internet is getting real huge. And, like, this was around the time that, like, social media started getting really big. And in the early to mid 2000s, was when like online games became huge.
Yes, I went ahead and got some statistics.
Yeah, go for it.
That I'd love to share with you. I was really curious about getting a graph for this, but I couldn't find one easily. But I'll just throw some statistics at you. So we found out, well, we kind of had a hunch. Xbox Live came out in 2002, but it was not popular to begin with. It only became more mainstream in the 2010s. So it took until July 2004 for Xbox Live to reach just 1 million users, which sounds like a lot, but compared to how many there are today, it's not a lot at all. But going forward a couple years, by 2008, we were at 10 million, right?
Yep.
So that's a 6-year gap, getting all the way to 10 million. And then from 2008 to 2009, it went from 10 million to 17 million. So what we're seeing as we go through the late 2000s and then into the 2010s, we're starting to see that exponential growth in online gaming.
Yep. Winter just gave me a very satisfied face.
Yeah, I researched something and I reached useful conclusions that I was able to share in a succinct manner.
Baby. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks. Anyway, yeah, so we have online gaming becoming more popular in the 2010s.
Yeah, and this was really interesting because up until this point, gaming was seen as this like antisocial behavior. And then you have this extremely popular form of gaming that basically is a social. There's a social function of it. Like the thing that became the most popular were like team-based shooting games. With the introduction of like Xbox Live and stuff. And this really like it flipped the identity of the gamer on its head, and it is at this point where we entered the era of what I like to call the esports jock.
Yes, the esports jock. Okay.
Yeah.
To give you context, here's the picture I want you to think of. So Colin is a competitive Smash player, right? And this was kind of new to me, right? Like, I knew that people, like, played games competitively and stuff, but I wasn't, like, into the culture at all.
Yeah.
When I met Colin, one of the first discussions that we had was about how the Binghamton Esports wanted to get Letterman jackets.
Yes.
That said, like, Binghamton Esports or whatever, and maybe even had your, like, tags,
you know,
your gamer tags on
I wish
them.
that it had panned out because I was so excited about it.
Yeah, I was so excited about it because that piece of information, the idea of the gamer wearing the Letterman jacket, completely like flipped my understanding of what esports was.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm somebody who like always has been very liberal with my definition of sport because I was in marching band in high school, so I started that argument very young. You have this like emblem of the jock, right? The Letterman jacket.
Yeah.
You know? And then you have it being worn by somebody who you wouldn't expect. And like, I think that there's another piece of it that like the archetype of like the jock, right? Sorry, not to get all like fucking high school on you.
Please.
But like the archetype of the jock is this like, what, like you picture him like coming in, the doors are like flinging open. He's like at least a foot taller than everybody else. He has a pretty girl on his arm, you know. He's like the star of the school. He is the star in whatever story we're telling. And he is celebrated. People look up to him.
Confident.
Beloved. Maybe a little stupid. But there he is anyway. Hunky as he is.
Yeah.
I think what we are seeing now is a transfer of that worth from the sports jock to the esports jock. Like, what's cool? What's trendy? Who is the confident guy, like, walking into the room and getting all the attention? Like, instead of the, like, football player walking in, we see the esports jock walking in with an e-girl on his arm, and, like, everybody loves him and, like, thinks he's amazing. Like, I think that we are witnessing a cultural shift where, like, that... is the quote unquote like praised like male form.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, absolutely.
And I'm not kidding. Like, that sounds really funny, but like this is what I'm thinking. Like, this is what I'm seeing in my head.
And it's really crazy because the seed of the esports jock was really planted in the early 2000s during the rise of online gaming. When you had stuff like Halo and like the early Call of Duties being played online a lot, and you had the birth of this kind of like personality.
Yeah.
And I, an avid gamer in middle school, saw these kinds of people who like also liked video games a lot, right?
Right.
And from an outside perspective, oh, we're both gamers, we're both part of the same culture. But I'm sitting over there playing like Smash Brothers and like Donkey Kong and stuff, and I'm outcast from the gamers who are talking about Call of Duty and like they all play together online.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm a gamer who's being outcast from this other subculture of gamers. And people who don't engage with video games, they don't even understand. Like I don't think they are even aware that there are these like subcultures and like nuances of like what it is to be a gamer, you know?
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's not their fault. It's just that like when I'm introducing myself to someone and I'm saying like, oh, I like video games, right? That can't even begin to like that sentence alone can't begin to convey what video games mean to me.
Right. Or even what games you play.
Yes.
What kind of person you are, what your values are.
There's a lot of nuance to being a gamer.
Right. Yeah. And I think people think that the sentence, I'm a gamer, tells you more about a person than it actually does.
Yes.
Yes. Totally. Totally. Yeah. So we've successfully taken you through the journey of the gamer. Born he was in the 80s at the arcade. Survived, yes, he survived the 90s. He survived the taunts of nerd. He survived into the 2000s. And we saw a lot of judgment in the 2000s towards this, like, archetype.
And you know what? All these... What you're just describing right now is, like, a lot of people... The average gamer, in fact, went through this cycle.
Yes, literally.
The average age of a gamer in the United States is 35 years old.
Cool.
So
he was born in the 80s, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the literal life cycle of the average gamer right now.
Yes. So we're talking about the lifestyle, and kind of here we are at this, I guess, precipice. Precipice. How do you say that?
Prepices?
Prepices? We're at the prepices. We're at the purpose. We are at the purpose where gaming kind of went through this like genesis and like almost like rising from the ashes. Became more popular. First, I think in terms of like sheer numbers, but now we're seeing this like cultural like dynamic. Like it's sexy to be a gamer. I told Colin when we were planning for this episode, I turned to him, I was like, you know what? Like, you like being like a competitive like Smash Ultimate like player is like makes you like nice arm candy for me right now. Like, you're trendy.
Yeah, that's right, guys. I am trendy.
Yes, he is.
But for real, it's becoming it's working its way into the mainstream, especially with things like Twitch. Like, people streaming games has become really big in the last like couple of years.
Especially with the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, fucking, you guys see that movie, the man, Ryan Reynolds guy
yeah,
man?
Free Guy. Bro, I could do an entire episode on Free Guy.
I thought, okay, I have a lot of good thoughts about that movie because, up until this point, the portrayal of like gamers in mainstream media is really abysmal. It does portray this loser archetype. What's great about Free Guy is that it acknowledges that some people are like this,
right?
But at the same time, it celebrates like these iconic figures in the gaming community and like shows how people like develop connections through video games and like the reasons why they love them.
Yeah.
It is a movie that it has a very nice representation of gamers.
Yes, if you are a gamer, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a couple surprises in there that I think you will really enjoy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't even know if what I'm talking about counts as a spoiler, but just watch it. You'll know what I mean. Yeah.
And like I went in expecting it to be like like Adam Sandler's Pixel, right? Which is
right.
the complete opposite.
I thought that Free Guy was like a really beautiful work of art.
It was.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, really, really is.
So this identity of the gamer is really working itself into the mainstream.
Yes, it is.
Which is it's interesting to see. But it's not quite there yet.
Right. We still have some problems.
Yeah.
We still have some, I think, righteous maybe critiques and some righteous observations about gaming culture.
Of course, yes. There are justifiable reasons to be wary of gamers.
Right. But
watch your backs.
Oh shoot, there's one sitting right next to me. You guys. Just kidding. But not to go back to the jock archetype metaphor, but like I think that it's possible for a certain like type of person to be extremely celebrated but also extremely feared. Well, not like maybe not feared on the individual level, but like feared as an entity, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know, like
sure.
You always think about the jock as like this celebrated figure, but also as a bully.
It's intimidating.
Yeah, and you think about this gamer as this like cool, hip, like person, probably a guy. I've been referring to the gamer as a guy because I think that they're like the gender of it is like almost entrenched in the archetype, and I think that's a problem. But yeah, with the gamer, you have this like cool, hip, like person who is also extremely problematic, like as an archetype. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could mention a certain few streamers and YouTubers, but I won't grace them with their names getting to be on my podcast.
Yeah, don't give them the views, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there are some very prevalent issues in the gaming community.
Yeah.
A huge one is sexism and racism. Especially sexism. The proportion of female gamers that come forward and say that they have experienced some sort of like harassment or bullying in games, like online games.
Yeah.
It's like pretty close to 100%.
Yes. Yeah, it literally is. I saw a really disturbing figure. I'll try to link the article, but something came out and it was like talking about something like 80% of women who work for Blizzard had experienced sexual harassment.
Oh my god, yeah, and it's like it applies to people who are playing the video games, but it also applies to the people who are making them.
Right.
And that's like, well, if the people who are making it are doing it, then that's got to have some sort of trickle down effect into the fan base.
Yeah.
But
yeah, oh, absolutely, because how do you think you're designing your women characters if you're a sexist prick
exactly.
who's in charge of developing these games? Like, obviously. I mean, that correlation is just so clear to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
It's shocking how nasty some people can be when you're playing video games.
Yeah, I'm scared.
And that's an enormous barrier to entry. That's barrier to entry number 2 is that gamers can be fucking mean, like really mean, especially in this era of like online team-based games with like a voice chat or even just like a text chat. People say some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking like death threats and like minutes of like continuous like swearing and like slurs, just being thrown around like fucking basketballs.
See, you just talking about that, like, makes me want to cry.
It's horrible.
Which means that I cannot play these games.
Yeah. And that makes me really sad, because these are great games that I get home from work and I'm like, yeah, crack my knuckles. Time to, like, go online, play some games of Valorant, like, have a great time, because I love this game. It's a really well-designed game. It like, encourages my creativity and, like, reflexes, and I, like, really enjoy it.
And then somebody's just yelling at you.
Get online, it's like, hey, guy, like... Oh, my God, the solo queue experience. Solo queue is when you, like, queue up to, like, be put in a lobby with, like, random teammates.
Right.
And Valorant is like a 5v5 team-based game. You get in, sometimes you're like, hey guys, like, how's it going? And, like, people are really friendly. Mm-hmm. But a large part of the time, a disturbingly large part of the time, people are, like, they're either just so mean for no reason, or, like, they make, like, really weird, uncomfortable noises, or, like, say, like, disturbing shit that will, like, sexually harass you for, like, no discernible reason.
Like, I can't even see you.
Yes, and it's like, people, there's no other explanation that people do this because they think it's funny. Or...
Well, I would actually push back on that a little bit. But maybe that's a topic for another time. I think that people think it's funny, and I also think that there's something really disturbing in our zeitgeist right now. Where, like, especially with boys and men, like, I think that you see, like, how do I describe this? I think that a lot of boys and men, like, feel disturbed, or, like, feel, like, and I don't mean that in, like, the psychological way. I mean, I think that they feel unsettled and, like, upset, you know? And I think that they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have, like, support in the fabric of our society. And I think that one of the ways that manifests is, like, turning around and, like, getting home from work and then being an asshole in Valorant, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That is true. But
I also think that some people do it because they think it's funny. But to me, it's like, okay, in what kind of world is it funny to, like, sexually harass somebody? Like, I don't... Well, shoot, we probably should have done a content warning for this as well. I'll put one in the description. Mm-hmm. But I don't see that as, like, a genuine reason for people to, like, behave like this.
Yeah, I mean, whether they do it because they think it's funny or because they're lashing out, I mean, it all obviously comes from a place of, like, deep disturbance, but sometimes that can manifest in a very dark and twisted, like, sense of humor.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's not normal to think these things are funny. Right.
No, it's not. It's not, and I don't think it's normal at all.
Yeah, but, like, I think you're absolutely right about the zeitgeist, like, the inhibitions of like, young men are just not there.
Right. Well, but the thing is, they are. Because, well, okay. How do I put this? I mean, we are still, in real life, we still do see, like, young men being extremely problematic towards, especially women.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, sexual harassment, in terms of, like, just, like, I think struggling with empathy.
Yes.
Like, and young men, if you're listening to this is not to, like, shit on you or, like, call you out or anything. Like, I do want to, like, bring you into this conversation. I'm just speaking kind of from what I've seen. Point being, like, we see more frequently in real life that, like, young men will have some sense of inhibition.
Oh, yeah. And this has everything to do with the stuff that we talked in the previous 2 episodes about social media.
Right.
And, like, how easy it is to be toxic behind a screen.
Yes.
And that is just ramped up ad infinitum when it comes to, like, online gaming and stuff.
Yeah.
Because not only are you interacting with these random people online, you are now basically put into a group procedurally to complete a task with these people.
Group work.
And this task has like effects on like your in-game rank, basically. Like a lot of people like to play games to like level up their rank, which is like basically a superficial like determinator. Is that a word? Determinator?
Yeah, determinator. You got it.
Of like how good at the game you are, right? Mm-hmm. And then in turn, you get to be popular because you're good at the game. So it's like you were literally... People see you, your teammates will see you as literally having an impact on their real life popularity and like how cool their friends think they are.
Yes.
And if you mess that up for them, they will get really angry at you and call you slurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not healthy.
No. No, not at all.
This is it's a huge thing. And like imagine, I mean, I can imagine being someone who like doesn't play video games but has an interest in video games. If I learned about this shit, I don't really think I would go for it, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's
sad.
why I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not particularly interested in, like, co-op games like Valorant.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess, like, co-op, like first-person shooters like Valorant. But I feel like even if I was, like, I wouldn't go for it.
Right.
Like, why would I spend my free time with somebody being mean to me?
Yeah.
You know?
And it
is a game. Like, I get that it has clout and stuff, but, like, even if you're, like, even if it's your job, man,
mm-hmm.
like...
It doesn't give you an excuse.
It's still just a game. Do you see professional, like, Major League Baseball players or, like, NFL players screaming slurs at each other?
Yeah, no.
I mean, I don't know what they do in private, but I'm assuming that... Well, actually, I don't know. I hope they don't do that. But from my perception, that's not something that they do because it's First of all, if you do want to be professional and, like, have clout about it, that is unprofessional. Yeah. And, like, second of all, even when professionals are playing games, they are still playing a game. It is a game. Like, nothing is worth being cruel to another human being. I don't know what about that people don't get, or not everybody gets. Sorry, I just went off there a little bit.
Please go off. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, I'm actually super down for this take that, like, screaming slurs at other people because you're upset that they're messing up your clout is unprofessional. Yeah. Because it is.
I think that's...
Do you see, like, fucking, like, all these, like, professional streamers, like, screaming at each other? No.
Yeah, I mean, it is... Like, these people want to be their favorite streamers. They want to be like them. But like you said... They don't have the structure. They don't have the inhibition. Like, they're trying so hard to emulate what they think is cool.
Right.
But at the same time, they are struggling to get there.
Yeah.
And they can just blame their teammates and get angry at that instead of reflecting.
Yeah, it's also like, okay, how about we all just start asking ourselves, okay, what's a wholesome streamer? Is Jacksepticeye wholesome? Would you say that?
Yeah. He's wholesome.
Let's all just start asking ourselves when we get upset when we're playing a game, what would Jacksepticeye do? There's actually WWJD, which is what would Jesus do. Let's just take that and add to it, what would Jacksepticeye do? I think that would do us all some good. How about that?
Yeah.
Like, for real.
And going back to what you said before, like, I think you're completely right that, like, the online team-based games is a completely different thing than, like, being interested in playing, like, Skyrim or something.
Totally. Because I love, like, games that I can just play by myself.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. But the reason that we are talking about this so much is that this is the mainstream of what it means to be a gamer, right?
Yes.
And this is the current perception of what it means to someone when you're like, I'm a gamer.
Right.
And this is this kind of game is like what the movie Free Guy was about. which is like one of the most mainstream pieces of media to date that has like a good representation of gamers.
Yeah.
It is about like this online game.
Yeah.
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 So it has a lot to do with the shit we talked about in our social media episodes. But there are things we can do, solutions we can talk about, alternatives, and maybe ways to start healing people's perception of how shitty gamers are.
Definitely. Yeah.
I mean, one more thing that I want to say.
Please go ahead.
I do think that video games as like a pastime, as a hobby, as a passion, it appeals to these young men that like that are disturbed and probably pretty sad and confused about life in general. You can choose to go online and spend a large part of your time improving at this one skill that has like quantifiable numbers telling you how good you are at it.
Yeah.
It acts as a sort of quite dangerous catharsis for them.
Yeah.
And it does encourage antisocial behavior.
Yes.
When you do like engage with it in a way that is not healthy.
Yes, and this is to be distinguished from all the people that thought that like in the 2000s were thinking that maybe there's a correlation between video games and violence. There's not. But nonetheless, when we see this kind of behavior, which as you just said, exactly right, it's antisocial behavior, that needs to be addressed in any context. And I think that we could admit that like violent video games in and of themselves do not cause violent behavior, but when you have an undercurrent of violent behavior in your young men in the zeitgeist, and then you're like, here's the world of video games, you have to address that.
Exactly.
Right? I think you're absolutely right. It is antisocial behavior, which is why I think, kind of moving into the solutions, I think one big solution is to make it a more social thing. How about, and you can tell them you coined this term here, esports youth culture. What I want is to get in a van with my 7 neighborhood children and take them to esports practice. They all have cute little jackets and jerseys, and the teacher after school teaches them about being friends with each other, dealing with competitive instinct, dealing with conflict. It's a whole like thing, almost like martial arts, except instead of the like martial arts part, it's esports. And it's a great program for the kids, and they make friends with each other, right? So first of all, what does this do? It teaches us not to be assholes when we're gaming. Second of all, it gives kids and the boys who are like playing games, like especially like not, I think this is also important for girls, but I think it's less of a problem for girls, you know what I mean? It gives them a sense of community and social support, right?
Yeah.
Where they can like be real about like this still I think a little taboo like hobby, and make friends about it, you know? So I think, and then another thing that's really good about that is it gets parents involved from a young age.
Yes.
So I'm actually going to link 2 really interesting articles. Well, the first one that I'm going to link specifically for this is raisinggoodgamers.com.
Once again, you laugh, but it's a great resource.
It really is. It's like, okay, like, I think that we have to start them young. I think we have to start them young. It's just like any other sport.
Yeah,
you know, if
it really is.
If it's going to be unregulated, like if your kid comes to you and is like, I want to do karate, it's like, you're going to sign them up for a program that's going to let them learn how to practice karate, but then you're also going to find them a nice program that teaches them about the importance of like, okay, protecting people who need protection, not getting in a fight, not picking fights, you know, only like responding in defense if you need to, you know, that running away is an okay option. That's the first thing that I was taught in martial arts, by the way, because I was not good at it. They said it's okay to run from a fight.
Same here. I did karate for 8 years.
Yeah.
And they were like, if you have the option to get away, do that.
Right, yeah. They were like, you don't have to stand and fight. But I think looking at gaming from a more holistic perspective, seeing it as something that is more holistic, like martial arts programs for little kids, where they don't just get to learn the sport, but they get to learn a mentality going into it. And they get the community that comes with that. That is going to be a huge part of getting rid of this toxicity that we see in gaming culture. And I'll tell you right now, if my kid is a gamer, I will be getting in a van with them, with all the neighborhood kids, and I will be taking them with their cute little Go-Gurt snacks to esports practice. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think parents getting involved is like a really... It's a really nice added bonus to, like, their encouragement and their passion for doing it.
Yes.
I think growing up in the early 2000s, I think I was not faced with a lot of support for my passion for video games, but rather a lot of resistance.
Absolutely.
But that only made me want to do it more.
Yeah. Well, I hope that, like, the esports youth culture doesn't, like, discourage kids.
No, yeah, of course.
You know?
But it makes an unhealthy relationship.
Right.
I ended up playing video games instead of doing my homework. I ended up playing video games instead of going out and meeting new friends.
Right.
Which sucks. But I think if your child comes to you with, like, a real love for video games, you know, you can foster that, you can nurture it into something really healthy for them. This probably, like parents in the early 2000s probably, like, didn't understand this because of all the hubbub going on around video games. But, you know, I think moving forward, it can be a thing. And I would love to see little, like, elementary school, little middle school, like, the esports clubs, you know?
Yeah.
And moving along to what you said about, like, community, you cannot underestimate the value of just, like, face-to-face interaction with people of the same, like, cohort, like the same things as you do.
Yeah.
Because you can go online and you can go on Discord and chat up a storm with these people, but there really is nothing like meeting with these people in person and like getting a real down-to-earth connection with them.
Yes, definitely.
When I had been standing on the border of, like, the competitive Smash scene for so long before I actually got the chance to, like, go to tournaments and, like, go meet like-minded people. And then when I eventually did, it was, like, pretty life-changing, you know? I made some of the best friendships I've ever made through competitive Smash, like, in-person tournaments. And it's like, it's a whole world of a difference. The attitude that gamers will have towards each other in person versus online, because it's a lot harder to be an asshole to someone face to face.
Yeah. As you put it.
And if you are an asshole to someone face to face, that whole cohort will kick you out.
Yes.
So you have each other's backs in a real life environment.
Yeah.
And it's really nice. Quick shout out to my beautiful Smash friends who I met at Binghamton. Soleil, love you. Adam, love you. Kevin, you're great. You know who you are. Cece. Oh my god.
Who recently started streaming, by the way, and maybe we should just link
Twitch.tv/Cyra4, CYRA4.
Yeah. Should we link it in the description? I'm gonna link it in the description.
Sure, yeah. You guys are the best. Where was I going with that? Yeah, no, it was just like it turned into such a healthy thing for me.
Yeah, totally.
Which was really nice. And then what else did we say?
So just kind of wrapping up this little solutions section. So two of the big things we talked about, esports youth culture, you heard it here first. And then Colin was kind of talking about doing things in person more often. And then just generally, I think that one other way to like move away from like toxic gaming culture, because I think that the things we just suggested, first of all, esports youth culture, that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of go-gurt to accomplish. So I don't know if that's going to happen overnight. And then also like in-person events, that's might not be possible for a lot of people for a while.
Yeah.
And even then you're still going to face these like toxic online situations. So what can we do about those, right?
Yep.
There's this really great article from Wired. This is the second article that I said I was going to link 2 articles. This is the second one. Talking about just literally how to stand up to toxic situations like in the moment, which I think sounds really intimidating. And I'm not a gamer myself. Well, I'm a gamer, but like I don't like play games. I don't stream, and I don't like play like competitive games like Valorant. So, you know, I recognize that I'm asking people to do something that probably is really hard, and probably even harder than I understand it to be. But I think what it comes down to is like in those moments where like there's something toxic and just wildly inappropriate happening, I think that we have to figure out a way to like stand up to that in a way that like isn't like cancel culture, but in a way that like brings these like lost boys like back to the table, you know? I don't know what that looks like. I'm gonna link this article. You can read through it yourself. Maybe just get familiar with a couple ways to like stand up to these toxic situations in the moment. I think that's really hard.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think it's a moral imperative by any means, like, to be honest with you. Because like if it was, you'd be sitting there like all day just like dealing with toxic garbage. But yeah, that's what I think. I think that has to be the last piece of the puzzle. And I think honestly, probably most people who like play the types of games where like people are just like screaming toxic nonsense at you, I think most people probably don't like that.
Yeah.
So like there's probably a majority of people who would want to stand up to this behavior. And I think we just have to get enough people doing that the culture becomes one of like, oh, sorry, like what's that you said? Like that's completely uncool and like I don't understand. Yeah, just like, and I think that it has to be like people kind of having each other's backs too. Like you said Valorant is like a team of like 5, right? Yeah. So let's say there's one asshole, right? Like, what can the 4 of you do to like, I don't know, like stand up to that and not just stand up to that and like mute them and be like, oh, you're toxic garbage, but like bring them back to the table. Yeah. Somehow.
That's really hard.
I know it's really hard, but I think that's the missing piece.
Yeah. And I mean, I have had moments like that, you know, where like people, we will have one asshole on the team and the rest of us would be like, you're really being like a jerk right now. Like, please stop. It's not helping anybody. And like you can occasionally get through to them, you know? The real problem happens when you have 3 assholes on the team and then there's the other 2 of you and then the other guy is just not saying anything. And it's like, well, shit.
I'm just picturing like it's like you and then like some other poor soul on the other end who's just like wide-eyed, like staring at the screen like, I'm just here to have a good time. Like, please stop yelling at me. And like I feel like some of these people who are playing are also kids, you know?
Yes, they
like,
are.
Literal minors.
But I've also been called horrible things by 12-year-olds online, so...
Well, the thing is, okay, if a 12-year-old is... what a sentence I'm about to say. If a 12-year-old is screaming racial slurs at you, what an amazing opportunity to turn that 12-year-old around, you know? Because, okay... Yes, horrible behavior, but that is also a child.
It's a learned behavior.
Right, that is a child.
They just want to play the game and have fun, and then they have all these toxic-ass adults that are, like, doing this, and like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to, like, behave.
Yeah, I just thought of actually a really good idea. Like, maybe one way to, like, shut down that kind of behavior, like, if somebody's being really toxic, is, like, pretend like one of you is, like, really young. and be like, hey man, like we have like a 13-year-old in the team. Can you like please stop? You know?
You know, as great of an idea that is, I don't know how many people it would prevent from being mean.
Oh really? That's oh my god. Oh okay. Well maybe y'all have to handle coming up with solutions because I'm just not familiar with it.
And I think we are moving in the right direction. From what I've been playing online games for years now. From what I've seen, we're moving in a good direction. It's a slow process. Yeah. But we are seeing some people stand up to the toxicity.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was in high school playing League of Legends, it was just none of that.
Yeah. I almost imagine, what if you had people who just went on to play specific, like not with the intent of like having fun, but like with the intent of like playing, you know, as best you can, but like with the intent of like, okay, if they come across any toxic people, any people who are behaving inappropriately, just like having a conversation with them while they're playing. That's like a big ask.
Undercover gaming mentors.
Yeah, undercover gaming dad, like here to like help you like deal with your anger and shit.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know if that's like, I mean, who would spend their time doing that? Mm-hmm. What hero will do that? Where have all the good men gone? Where are all the gods?
And I think that's a great segue into our next and probably final question of the episode is like, why would that even be worth the effort, you know?
That's a great question, Colin. I'd love to hear what you think about it.
It's because video games are awesome. They promote so many great things, not even including like team building and communication. They encourage your creativity, fluid intelligence. It's the very act of like doing something for the purpose of getting better at it is most of the time an extremely rewarding experience if you have a good relationship with it, with the activity. It's just really, I think it's a great way to spend your time if you're doing it right, and you get to meet a lot of cool people probably. Mm-hmm. It can be a very great social experience. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be really wholesome.
Yeah. And then if you're lucky enough and good enough, you can even turn it into a profession.
Yeah.
But do it for fun first. Like most pastimes and hobbies, do it for fun. Don't do it for the purpose of trying to make it big.
Yeah, be like the Moonflower Show, guys. Set your sights low.
That's not what I'm saying.
No. Well, my point is like we make this podcast because we love it.
Yeah.
And we have fun with it. And it would be nice for this to turn into something bigger, but we're not like pushing for that and we don't need it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And my point is if somebody on your team is having a bad game and you lose your rank because of it, it happens. Don't be mean. Be nice.
Yeah. Because, hey, like, man, if you're, like, streaming your shit, like, okay, first of all, I get that, like, there's different ranks and stuff, but, like, if you're streaming that content, well, like, people are going to be so much more drawn to you if you are genuinely being, like, a nice, funny, like, interesting person. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, I watch, I'm into different games than you are, but, like, I play a lot of games where it's just me hanging out by myself. Mm-hmm. But I seek out, like, streamers who are, like, just sitting there, like, being wholesome, like, talking about the game they're playing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm playing.
I have a very... Oh, were you finished with that thought?
Yeah.
I have a very distinct memory because when you do have, like, a very positive attitude across the whole team, it's such a great, like, and motivating experience.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, when your team's being toxic, you are literally less focused on the game and performing worse.
Yeah.
So that's why I usually mute those people, because it literally makes me do worse to listen to you, like, bitch and complain about things that don't really matter. But I have this vivid memory, maybe, I don't know if you guys can hear, but Rose is meowing at us.
Rose entered the room and is like,
She announced her
she's
presence.
giving us a talking to right now.
But I have this distinct memory from when I was playing Overwatch. This one guy who played Lucio on my team, for those of you who don't know, Lucio is like this DJ character who rides on roller skates, and he buffs the rest of your team by just running around and like blasting music through speakers.
Love that.
He had, Overwatch has voice chat, and this guy was just like the most like pure, just like joyous, positive energy force that I could possibly imagine. Like, he was like, all right guys, what's the plan? Like, I'm so ready to play this game with you guys. And it was like, we're playing with complete strangers.
Yeah.
He was just pumping us up, the rest of us up throughout the entire game.
Yo.
And
that's awesome.
Like, I remember we like got like a team kill, like we eliminated the entire enemy team, and he like exclaimed like, yeah, like into the microphone, and it was just the most like excited, just like, yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
It was a really great time.
Yeah.
So
that
yeah,
sounds like such a good time. And I just thought of another really great idea for getting rid of the toxicity. Like, what if just preemptively you had like some energy like going into the chat, and like you had that guy's energy right off the bat. Like, you go, like, you just cut them off. Like, they can't be mad.
That is a legit strategy that a lot of people we're starting to see.
Yeah.
People will be very friendly and outgoing.
Yeah.
To try to counteract that toxicity, and we need more of that.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to just put yourself out there among the other gamers.
Yes, because there is a majority of you who are nice and friendly and just there to have a good time, and I think that you need to band together and like really make that presence known. Because the thing is, I feel like I think it's okay to be like quietly kind, to be like quietly like just wholesome, but I think that when you have this very loud like toxicity, you kind of got to increase your volume, your wholesome like vibe. So like what you don't want to have is like all the sweet fun people just like not saying anything,
Yeah.
You just got to turn up the volume of the positivity.
Agreed. And I think that's all we have to say on that matter for now.
Yeah.
This has been great.
Yes, it has been lovely talking to you about this, our episode on The Gamer.
The Gamer.
We will see you next time.
Dum dum. Good night, Moonflowers.
Bye bye. Talk to you next time.